I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who ends up on magazine covers. Yet here I am, staring at my own face on the latest issue of Tech Innovators, with the headline "From Betrayal to Billion, the Marcus Hale Story." It's hard to believe, honestly. If you told me a year ago that I'd be running a multi-million-dollar tech firm, I'd have thought you were joking. Back then, I was just another guy in IT, scraping by, wondering if I'd ever get ahead. My biggest concern was whether I could stretch my paycheck to cover a nice dinner for my wife, Tessa, on our anniversary. Tessa. My wife, or, I suppose, my ex-wife now. It's funny how life works. If she hadn't cheated, I'd still be living paycheck to paycheck, stuck in a job that didn't value me, in a marriage that was quietly falling apart. But her betrayal flipped a switch in me, set me on a path I never saw coming. I'm Marcus Hale, 34 years old, and this is how it all started. A year ago, I was working as an IT specialist at a mid-sized firm in the city. The job paid okay, enough to keep the lights on and cover the mortgage on our suburban house, but it wasn't anything to write home about. I'd been there almost 10 years, fixing servers, troubleshooting software, you name it. I was good at it, too, but it didn't matter. My boss was the type who'd pat himself on the back for my ideas and then tell me I needed to step up. I'd just nod and get back to work. That's me in a nutshell: loyal, practical, not one to stir the pot. Tessa was different. She was 32, sharp as a tack, and the kind of person who could light up a room without trying. We met back in college, when I still had big dreams about starting my own tech company. Life had other plans, though. Student loans piled up, a steady job came along, and those dreams got pushed aside. Tessa didn't seem to mind at first. We got married, bought the house, settled into a routine. But over time, I could tell something was off. She'd nudge me about asking for a raise or finding a better gig, but I'd shrug it off. "We're fine," I'd say. No point in rocking the boat. Looking back, I think she wanted more, not just money, but something bigger, something exciting. I was happy enough, or at least I thought I was. Maybe that was the issue. When you're too comfortable, you stop noticing the cracks. Things started shifting about a year ago. Tessa got more involved in social stuff, networking events, charity galas, that kind of thing. She worked in marketing, so she said it was good for her career. I didn't mind. I'm not big on small talk or crowded rooms, so I'd usually stay home or pull a late shift at the office. Sometimes she'd even go to events for me, like if my company was involved. I liked that; it took the pressure off. One night, she came home late from one of those galas. I was already in bed, drifting off, when I heard the front door creak open. She slipped into the room, and I caught a whiff of her perfume mixed with something else, maybe cologne? I didn't dwell on it. "How was it?" I mumbled, half asleep. Same old," she said, her tone light. "Boring speeches, overpriced drinks." I laughed a little and let sleep take me, not suspecting a thing. Over the next few months, I noticed changes. Subtle ones, but they were there. Tessa started pushing me to work on my side project, an app I'd been messing around with for a while. It was a tool for remote workers, something to help them stay organized. I'd started it mostly to kill time, but she used to roll her eyes about it, saying it was pointless if I wasn't serious. Now, though, she was all encouragement. "You should finish that app," she'd say. "It could really take off." I was caught off guard but happy. Maybe she was finally on board with it. So I started spending more time on it, nights, weekends, whenever I could. Tessa didn't care; she'd even tell me to keep at it. "Don't worry about me," she'd say with a smile. "I've got plenty to do." I should have wondered what that meant. The first real hint came from a friend's Instagram post. It was a shot from some rooftop mixer downtown, a tech entrepreneur thing. I wasn't there, but in the background, blurry but unmistakable, was Tessa. She had on this sleek black dress I'd never seen before, her hair done up differently. And standing next to her, his hand resting on her lower back, was some guy. Tall, sharp suit, oozing confidence even in a fuzzy photo. I couldn't stop looking at it. Who was he? Why was he touching her like that? I told myself it was nothing, maybe a trick of the angle, or just a friendly pose. But it stuck with me, like a splinter I couldn't pull out. When she got home that night, I brought it up, keeping it casual. Saw you in Jake's Instagram post from that rooftop event. Looked fun. She barely looked up from her phone. Oh, yeah, it was okay. Met some people. Who was that guy with you in the back? I asked, trying to sound offhand. She shrugged. Probably one of the organizers or something. I don't really remember. It was too quick, too vague. I wanted to push, but I didn't. Maybe I was overthinking it, I told myself. We'd been together over 10 years, she wouldn't do that to me. Would she? That doubt wouldn't leave, though. It started small, but it grew. I noticed more things after that. How she'd snap her laptop shut when I walked in, or step out to take calls in a low voice. The late nights got more frequent, client meetings, she'd say, or another event. Sometimes she'd come home, and I'd catch that faint cologne scent again, clinging to her jacket. I tried to explain it away. She's just busy, I thought. Networking, climbing the ladder. But it didn't sit right. Deep down, I knew something wasn't adding up. I just didn't want to admit it. One night, after a long day at work, I got home late. Tessa was already asleep. I sat at the kitchen table, my laptop glowing in the dark, but I couldn't focus. That photo, her evasions, the little shifts, they were piling up. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I decided then and there to do something about it. I'm an IT guy, I know how to dig for answers. I put a keylogger on our shared laptop and see what was going on. It felt sneaky, wrong even, but I needed to know. If she was being straight with me, I'd find nothing, and I could let it go. If not, well, I'd deal with that when I got there. I had no idea what I was about to uncover or how it would change everything. It's been a week since I stumbled across that Instagram photo, and the unease gnawing at me hasn't let up. Tessa's behavior has shifted in ways I can't ignore. She's been pushing me to spend more time on my app, something she used to grumble about constantly, and her late nights have become routine. Tonight, she's out again, claiming it's another event, and I'm left pacing the living room, the silence pressing in around me. I can't keep pretending everything's fine. I need answers, even if digging for them feels like a betrayal of its own. Sitting down at our shared laptop, I pull up a keylogger program, nothing fancy, just something I found online that suits my skills as an IT specialist. My fingers hesitate over the keys before I install it, a flicker of guilt sparking in my chest, but I push it aside. If there's nothing to find, I'll sleep easier. If there is, well, I'll deal with that when I get there. Over the next few days, I check the logs whenever I can, keeping it subtle so she doesn't notice. At first, it's all predictable emails about work, random browsing, a few purchases. But then I spot something that makes my stomach twist. Every time she tells me she's staying late, her personal email lights up with activity. It's not proof of anything, not yet, but it's enough to keep me digging. By Friday night, with her out again and the house empty, I settle at the kitchen table, the laptop screen casting a harsh glow across my face. I open the keylogger and dive into the email logs, scrolling until a name stops me cold. Brandon Cray, tied to an address. I know that name, that face, from the photo where his hand rested too comfortably on her back. She'd brushed it off when I asked, but now my hands shake as I click deeper. The first message hits me like a punch I didn't see coming. Hey beautiful, can't stop thinking about last night, when can I see you again? Brandon wrote, timestamp 2 days ago. Tessa's reply follows right after, soon, I promise. Marcus has been working late, so it's easier to get away. My breath catches, and I grip the table edge to steady myself, forcing my eyes to keep moving down the screen. There's more conversations about meeting spots, mentions of hotels, even a casual exchange about what to say if I start asking questions. If he asks, just say it was a work thing. He never pushes back on that, she wrote. And she's right, I never did, because I trusted her completely. Each word I read tightens the knot in my chest, but I can't stop now, not when I'm this close to the truth. Then I find something that shifts the ground under me entirely. How's the app coming along? Is he close to finishing? Brandon asked in one email. Tessa's response is quick. He's been working on it more lately, I think he's almost done with the prototype. I'll try to get more details. Brandon fires back, perfect, once it's ready, we can move forward with the plan. My app? The one I've been building in my spare time, the one she's suddenly so supportive of? I scroll faster, hunting for more, and there it is, Brandon again, make sure he doesn't suspect anything, we need that code clean and untraceable. Tessa's reply makes my skin crawl, don't worry, he's clueless, he's just happy I'm supporting his project now. Clueless, that's what she thinks of me, what they both think. The realization crashes over me, sharp and unrelenting, not only is she sneaking around with this guy, but they're scheming about my work too. My app, the thing I've been pouring myself into, is tangled up in whatever they're planning. It's not just about her cheating, it's about them using me, picking apart my life for their own gain. I lean back in the chair, my mind spinning, hands clammy against the table. Part of me wants to march out right now, track them down, and demand answers, but I know that's a dead end, she'd lie, or they'd twist it somehow. Instead, I close the email logs and pull up my app project, staring at the lines of code until they blur in front of me. This isn't the time to fall apart, I need to turn this into something I can control. I start typing, fingers moving faster than they have in weeks, channeling everything roiling inside me into the work. Bugs I've ignored get fixed, functions I've half-finished sharpen up, and I add pieces I've been too distracted to tackle before. Hours slip by unnoticed, the sky outside lightening as I keep going, driven by a mix of anger and determination. When Tessa walks into the kitchen, yawning and rubbing her eyes, I'm still at it, the screen my only focus. You're up early, she says, her voice light, like nothing's changed. Couldn't sleep, I mutter, keeping my eyes on the code. She steps closer, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. Don't work too hard, okay, you need rest. Yeah, sure, I say, managing a thin smile, the kind she won't question. She shuffles off, leaving me alone again, and I save my progress, shutting the laptop with a quiet click. They think they can take everything from me, my trust, my work, but they're wrong. I'm going to finish this app, make it something they can't touch, something better than they could ever pull off. And when I'm ready, I'll figure out how to face them, but for now, I've got to keep this close, play it smart. This isn't over, not by a long shot. The co-working space hummed with the energy of ambition as I stood outside the glass-walled conference room, watching Brandon charm a group of investors with his polished pitch. He was in his element, gesturing confidently, his voice carrying through the door as he outlined his latest tech venture. I gripped the USB drive in my hand, loaded with evidence that would unravel his world, private messages, hotel receipts, and a photo of him with Tessa that left no room for excuses. My pulse raced, but I kept my breathing steady, knowing this was the moment to strike. I pushed the door open and stepped inside, the room falling into an awkward hush as every head turned toward me. Brandon's smile twitched, his eyes narrowing as he registered my presence. Marcus? What are you doing here? He asked, his tone laced with a forced ease that didn't match the tension in his posture. I ignored him, walking straight to the laptop hooked up to the projector, my movements deliberate as I plugged in the drive. I apologize for the interruption, I said, keeping my voice even, but I think everyone here deserves to see this before you commit your money. The screen lit up with a cascade of emails and texts between Brandon and Tessa, and the investors shifted in their seats, their curiosity sharpening into something harder. Brandon's face went pale, his hands clenching at his sides as he tried to regain control. This is a mistake, a complete misunderstanding, he began, but I clicked to the next slide, and the room sucked in a collective breath. The photo of him and Tessa, tangled together in a hotel bed, filled the screen, undeniable and raw. I'm Marcus Hale, I said, turning to face the investors directly, Tessa's husband. You're about to invest in a man who didn't just sleep with my wife but also planned to steal my app's code to boost his own project. The words landed like a punch, and Brandon's mouth opened and closed, his excuses dying before they could form. The investors exchanged looks, their expressions tightening with disapproval as the reality sank in. A woman in a sharp suit stood up, her voice cutting through the silence. This is unacceptable, she said, gathering her notes. We'll need to reassess everything. The others followed her lead, chairs scraping as they exited, leaving Brandon stranded in the wreckage of his pitch. He glared at me, his voice low and venomous. You fucked me over, Marcus. You've ruined it all. I pulled the USB drive from the laptop and slipped it into my pocket, meeting his gaze without flinching. "No, you did that when you crossed me," I said, then turned and walked out, the door swinging shut behind me. The drive home blurred past as my mind churned, replaying every second of Brandon's downfall, but I knew the harder fight was still waiting. Tessa would be livid, and I steeled myself for the clash as I pulled into the driveway, spotting her car already there. I stepped inside, and she was on me before the door even clicked shut, her arms crossed, her eyes burning with fury. "What did you do?" she snapped, her voice slicing through the air. I set my keys down and faced her, keeping my tone level despite the storm brewing inside. "I showed everyone who Brandon really is, your lover, your partner in screwing me over. The affair, the plot, all of it." She let out a harsh laugh, sharp and bitter, stepping closer as if to intimidate me. "You think you're some kind of hero now? You're just a sad, jealous little man who can't stand that I wanted more than you could give." Her words hit hard, but I held my ground, refusing to let her see the cracks. "More?" I said, my voice rising despite my effort to stay calm. "You mean a guy who sleeps with his friend's wife and tries to steal his work? That's your upgrade?" She rolled her eyes, turning away as if I wasn't worth the effort. "You were always so small, Marcus. Happy with your little life, your little dreams." Brandon had guts, drive, he made me feel something again. I stepped forward, closing the distance, my anger breaking through. "And what about me? What about the years I put into us? You threw it away like it was nothing, Tessa." She whipped back around, her face twisted with defiance. "You think the world owes you something because you're nice? Wake up, people take what they want, and I did." I shook my head, the hurt mixing with a strange clarity as I reached into my jacket and pulled out the divorce papers, dropping them onto the table between us. "Then take this," I said, my voice steady now. "I filed yesterday. I'm done with you, with all of this." She grabbed the papers, her eyes scanning them as her bravado faltered. "You're bluffing," she hissed. "You'll crash and burn without me, and you'll beg to come back." I let a small, hard smile show as I delivered the final blow. "My startup's funded, Tessa, by one of Brandon's rivals. They saw what I built, and they're all in. I don't need you, or him, or this house." Her jaw tightened, the fight draining from her as the truth hit. I grabbed my keys again, heading for the door. "I'll be at a hotel until it's official," I said over my shoulder. "Keep the place warm for me." I walked out, the air outside cool against my skin, the weight of her betrayal finally lifting as I left her standing there, alone with the mess she'd made. It's been 2 days since I walked out on Tessa, and the silence in my hotel room weighs on me more than I expected. I've spent hours glued to my laptop, combing through the emails I captured with the keylogger I installed weeks ago when I first suspected something was off. Every exchange between Tessa and Brandon stings, a reminder of how easily they thought they could outsmart me. I keep scrolling, driven by a mix of anger and curiosity, until I stumble across something that changes everything, a full breakdown of Brandon's upcoming product launch for his startup. It's all there, timelines, marketing angles, budget details, even notes on investor targets. Tessa's been editing it, adding her thoughts on how to sharpen the pitch and hook the big names. This isn't just a personal betrayal anymore, it's a goldmine, and I can use it to make them both pay. I sit back in the chair, letting the possibilities swirl in my head. Brandon's got a competitor, Alex Chen, who's been gaining traction in the same tech circles. If I can get this plan into Alex's hands, he could turn it against Brandon, maybe even beat him to the punch with a better release. It's a gamble, but sitting here doing nothing isn't an option. I open a browser, set up a new email account with no ties to me, and start typing a message to Alex. "You don't know who I am, but I've got something that can put you ahead of Brandon Cray. Check the attached files, his product launch strategy. Do what you want with it." My hand pauses over the keyboard, a flicker of doubt creeping in. This isn't the kind of move I'd have made a year ago, but that version of me is gone. They pushed me to this. I hit send, shut the laptop, and feel a strange steadiness take hold. Later that night, I'm lying on the hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying what I've done. Back when Tessa and I were just starting out, I never would have pictured myself pulling a stunt like this, digging into someone's secrets, turning their own game against them. I used to think avoiding trouble was the smart play, keeping my head down and my hands clean. Now, I'm in the thick of it, and it's not just about getting even, it's about taking back what's mine. Tessa and Brandon figured I'd roll over, let them walk away with everything, my trust, my work, my future. They misjudged me, and that's their mistake. I'm not the guy who sits quietly in the corner anymore, I'm the one calling the shots. A week goes by, and I'm back at the hotel desk, flipping through tech news on my phone. A headline jumps out: Craytech's big reveal tanks as Chen Innovations drops surprise competitor. I tap the link, my pulse picking up. The story lays it out: Alex Chen rolled out a product eerily similar to Brandon's 2 days earlier, with tweaks that made it stand out. Brandon's launch flopped hard. The article mentions confused investors and a flood of cancellations. There's speculation about how Chen pulled it off, whispers of an inside leak. I can't hold back a grin, small but real. It's not just a win, it's proof I can hit them where it hurts. The plan worked, and Brandon's empire is crumbling faster than he can patch it up. Then I spot another piece, this one from a gossipy tech blog: Brandon Cray's fall, affair and dirty tricks exposed. It's all there: the affair with Tessa, how they tried to swipe my app code, and now this latest disaster. The comments section is relentless, tearing into Tessa by name, calling her out for playing both sides. I picture her scrolling through it, watching her carefully built social world collapse. She always thrived on being in the right circles, dazzling at galas and dinners, name-dropping her way to the top. That's over now, no one's going to touch her after this. The elite crowd she chased doesn't forgive this kind of mess, and I know that cuts her deeper than anything else could. My phone lights up, Tessa's name flashing across the screen. It's her third call today, probably desperate to explain or beg or whatever she thinks will fix this. I don't pick up, I just watch it ring out and go to voicemail. There's no point in hearing her out, she chose her path, and I'm done being the one who bends. She can deal with the fallout on her own. I've got my own plans, my own life to put together, and I'm not wasting another second on her excuses. A few days later, I'm loading my stuff into a car and leaving the hotel for a new apartment downtown. It's a simple place, nothing fancy, but it's a clean break from the house I shared with Tessa. While unpacking, I pull out a framed photo from our wedding, both of us grinning like the world was ours. For a second, I feel a tug of something: regret, maybe, or just the ghost of what used to be. Then it's gone. I drop the picture into the trash bin and head back to my laptop, pulling up my apps code. It's close to finished, and with the funding I locked down after exposing Brandon, I'm ready to build something of my own. This is where my energy belongs now. That night, I check the burner email and see a reply from Alex Chen: don't know who you are, but you saved me months of work. Craytech is done, and we're taking the lead. If you're ever looking to team up, I owe you one. I read it twice, a quiet satisfaction settling in. I don't write back: Alex doesn't need to know me, and I'm not here to make friends. What matters is that it worked, better than I dared to hope. Brandon's out of the game, and Tessa's paying the price right alongside him. Over the next few days, word spreads through the tech scene like wildfire. Brandon's startup is bleeding cash, investors jumping ship every hour. Tessa's gone dark online, her usual stream of posts and photos replaced with nothing. People I know start texting, asking if I've heard the latest, but I keep it short: I'm not here to gloat. She dug her own hole, and I'm not about to feel bad for handing her the shovel. Meanwhile, I'm tying up the last pieces of my app, getting ready to launch my own company. It's a fresh start, built on the ashes of what they tried to take from me. Funny thing is, if Tessa hadn't pushed me to this edge, I might never have gotten here. In some messed up way, I've got her to thank. It's been 6 months since I last saw Tessa, and I'm sitting in the coffee shop we used to visit together, the one on the quiet corner downtown where the air smells faintly of roasted beans and the indie playlist loops softly overhead. I'm not here for nostalgia, I've got a meeting in an hour, and this place is just a convenient spot to review my notes, my laptop open in front of me as I scroll through emails about the startup that's finally gaining momentum. The door chime rings, pulling my attention for a moment, and I glance up to see Tessa walking in, her coat slightly rumpled, her hair not as sleek as it used to be, her eyes catching mine almost immediately. She pauses, then forces a smile that looks more nervous than warm, and I can tell she didn't expect me here any more than I expected her, but she heads my way anyway, her steps deliberate, her hands adjusting the strap of her bag like she's buying time to figure out what to say. "Marcus," she starts, her voice pitched a little too high, "it's been a while, hasn't it?" I don't get up, don't shift my posture, just look at her with a steady gaze and say, "Yeah, it has," gesturing to the chair across from me without much enthusiasm, leaving it up to her whether she sits or stands there awkwardly. She chooses to sit, sliding into the chair and setting her bag down, her fingers tapping the table as she tries to find her footing. "I didn't think I'd run into you here," she says, glancing around the room like she's commenting on the decor or the weather, but I'm not in the mood for surface-level chatter, so I lean back slightly, crossing my arms, and ask, "How've you been, Tessa?" My tone is flat, not inviting much, and she shrugs, her smile slipping as she answers, "Okay, I guess, just figuring things out, you know how it is." I don't nod, don't give her the reassurance she's fishing for, because I'm not here to play that game anymore, and after a pause, she pushes forward, her voice dropping a little. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about what happened, and I owe you an apology, Marcus. I know I screwed up, and I'm sorry for how it all went down." She's looking at me now, her eyes searching for something, maybe forgiveness or a sign that I'm still the guy who'd let her talk her way back in, but I've spent the last 6 months picking apart the wreckage she left, and I'm not that person anymore. "You're sorry," I say, keeping my voice even, not letting it rise or sharpen, but sorry doesn't erase the fact that you didn't just mess up, you tried to take everything from me, my trust, my work, all of it, for someone who didn't even stick around when it mattered. She winces, her hands stilling on the table, and I can see her trying to rally, her old charm flickering as she says, "I was stupid, caught up in something that wasn't real, and I regret it every day. Doesn't that count for anything?" I shake my head, not breaking eye contact. "Regret's your burden, not mine. I've moved on, Tessa, and I'm not here to fix what you broke." She blinks, her expression shifting to something raw, and she leans forward, her voice trembling slightly as she asks, "Can't we at least talk, maybe figure out a way to, I don't know, try again?" It's a desperate play, and I almost feel bad for her, but I've already walked through the shock of finding out, the anger that kept me up nights, the sadness that dulled everything, and now I'm on the other side, steady and sure, so I tell her, there's no trying again, the divorce is final next week, and that's the end of it. Her face tightens, and she's quiet for a moment, processing that, before she whispers, "You're really going to let it go like that, after all we had?" I stand up then, closing my laptop, and look down at her, my voice firm but not loud. "You let it go first, Tessa. You made your choice, and I've made mine, and I'm not the guy who waits around for someone to figure out what loyalty means." She stares up at me, her eyes wide, and I can tell she's scrambling for something to say, but I'm already done, gathering my things as the barista calls my name from the counter, holding out a to-go cup with my usual order. I walk over, take it from her, and she smiles, her fingers brushing mine as she hands it over, and I notice a small heart drawn on the lid, a phone number scrawled next to it, a quiet signal of something new, something uncomplicated. I smile back, a real one, and tuck the cup into my bag, turning just in time to see Tessa watching, her expression caught between surprise and a flicker of loss. "Take care, Tessa," I say, shouldering my bag and heading for the door, my steps light, the afternoon sun waiting outside as I leave her sitting there, the space between us wider than it's ever been. I don't look back, don't need to. She's a chapter I've already closed, and I've got a meeting to get to, a life that's mine now, built on what I've learned and what I want, not what I used to settle for. The door swings shut behind me, and I keep walking, the weight of the past finally off my shoulders. The office at Hale Innovations buzzes with the steady hum of keyboards clacking and voices overlapping as I weave through the rows of desks, acknowledging my team with quick nods and greetings. My tech firm has transformed from a solitary venture launched in a cramped hotel room into a thriving operation, now boasting 25 employees and a modern downtown headquarters. Whiteboards plastered with colorful notes and diagrams line the walls, while the atmosphere crackles with the drive of people fully invested in their work. I pause near a group of developers clustered around a screen, their faces tense as they wrestle with a glitch in our newest software update. "Have you checked the backend API call yet?" I ask, leaning in to scan the lines of code. It could be timing out before the data pulls through. Priya, a quick-witted coder with a knack for problem-solving, nods and adjusts the script, her fingers moving with precision. Moments later, the screen updates, the error vanishes, and the team exhales in unison. "Nice catch, Marcus," Priya says, grinning. "You've got an eye for this stuff." I return a casual thumbs up and move on, but the moment lingers, a reminder of how far I've come, from the quiet IT guy fixing printers to the founder steering a company that's rewriting the industry's rules. Back in my office, a glass-walled corner with a sprawling view of the city, I settle in to review the latest financial reports, the numbers painting a picture of steady growth and untapped potential. The company's doing better than I dared to hope, new funding is locked in, and our user base is expanding at a pace that keeps investors buzzing. It's a stark contrast to the days when I was tethered to a middling paycheck, my ambitions buried under routine. As I flip the report shut, my thoughts drift to that tense coffee shop meeting 6 months back, Tessa's shaky voice cutting through the hum of espresso machines as she tried to salvage what she'd broken. I can still see her there, hands twisting, eyes darting, spilling apologies that rang hollow. But the Marcus she was pleading with, the one who dodged tough calls and let resentment simmer, doesn't exist anymore. That version of me crumbled under her betrayal, and what emerged was someone sharper, someone who learned that loyalty outweighs flash every time. Chasing charm got me burned, building trust got me here. My phone lights up with a text, snapping me back to the now, and I glance at the screen to see Lena's name pop up. "You still good for dinner," she writes, tossing in a goofy emoji for good measure. "Wouldn't ditch you," I reply, my thumbs quick on the keys. Lena's a breath of fresh air, smart, self-reliant, and blunt in the best way. We crossed paths at a tech conference where she was dissecting AI ethics, and bonded over niche programming quirks and terrible jokes. There's no games with her, no undercurrents to navigate, just a connection that clicks without forcing it. After Tessa, it's a relief to ease into something uncomplicated, to feel the spark of possibility without the baggage. I'm not rushing it, just letting it unfold, and that feels right. As the workday winds down, I grab my bag and make my way out, stopping when Jake, one of our interns, flags me down with a question about his project, his voice tripping over itself as he explains. I listen, offering pointers and a nudge of reassurance. "You're on the right track," I tell him, resting a hand on his shoulder. "Keep at it, you'll get there." He straightens up, a flicker of determination in his eyes, and I see echoes of my younger self in his uncertainty, the potential waiting for a push. Mentoring the team has become a quiet mission of mine, a way to pass on the lessons I had to learn the hard way. It's not enough to build a company that turns a profit, I want it to be a place where people grow, where the next Marcus doesn't need a betrayal to find his footing. Outside, the evening air hits me as I step onto the street, the city pulsing with light and motion, every corner brimming with chances I once couldn't see. I think back to how this all started, that gut punch realization, if Tessa hadn't strayed, I'd still be coasting, stuck in a life too small for me. Her cheating lit the fuse, drove me to gamble on myself, to claw my way up from nothing. The success is sweet, no question, the bank account, the recognition, but it's the man I've become that matters. I value what lasts over what shines, I chase what I want without apology, and I know now that shedding the wrong people can carve the path to something real. Heading toward the restaurant where Lena's waiting, I let a grin slip out, the weight of the past fading with every step. The future's wide open, and I'm ready for it.